4, 3, 2.
Good morning. Hey guys, happy Saturday. It's Miriam. I'm here in the Miami Community News studio with Race to the Top. We've got an exciting show for you all today. Thank you for tuning in as usual, and make sure you pick up a copy of one of the 11 newspapers that Miami Community News puts out all over the county. We've got two fantastic guests today. We're streaming live on YouTube and Facebook. So share it, like it, comment, send in your questions. Really appreciate all of you. Just wanted to continue to say that. Big news, I'm giving you an opportunity to win what you want through this amazing new app called Love It. They are here based in Miami, so you do have to be in Miami to win. But all you have to do today is comment in with what you want to win through the Love It app. They are giving ridiculous discounts on food in restaurants all around Miami. So I'm basically hooking you up with food today through the Love It app. All you have to do is comment in. You can say, I want $20, I want $50, I want $100. I mean, I think sticking within that $15 range is probably the best idea, but you can choose any restaurant that's in there and you might win whatever you want to that restaurant. So if it's like a pizza or something of that nature. Excited to continue to do the show today. I wanted to bring a little bit of attention to some stuff. Thank you to Leanne Buchanan, who reminded me this week with her Venture Cafe email newsletter that where attention flows, energy goes. This is something that I already knew, but it was just a nice reminder. And so I want to take this opportunity to remind everybody that we are still in COVID, in a pandemic, hashtag stay at home. Also, some interesting cases here. The ACLU lawyer that has been working to reunite migrant families with their children cannot find the parents of 545 of the children. So please make sure to keep that on the top of your radar. There's these horrible atrocities that are happening right here in Florida and all around the border with separation of children. There is also a interesting story that came out this week in the Miami Herald about the Trump campaign using big data to deter Black Floridians from coming out to vote in 2016. Long story. I'm going to ask my first guest, Shante, about that in a few minutes and get her thoughts on that. And also an exciting announcement, the PAM is going to be opening their doors November 7th with a fantastic exhibit entitled Allied with Power, African and the African Diaspora, Art from the Jorge M. Perez Collection, although the reopening is being overshadowed by the community's kind of disgust with them hosting Donald Trump recently. So with that, I'm going to get my fantastic guest, Shantae.
Hello.
Shantae Gordon is here with us today to talk about all the things that she's up to. Shantae is a mindfulness consultant, yoga teacher, certified health coach.
Yes.
She centers her work around energy movement from trauma-informed perspective, facilitates self-healing for children ages 10 to 17, individuals and small groups. She works with corporate clients, developing mindfulness techniques, and just a plethora of other stuff. How are you doing, Shantae?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really excited to be here and have this
you.
conversation with you today.
Thank you for coming.
Of course.
You know I adore and love you. We met through Miami Made a few years ago.
Yes.
Fantastic organization.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you first, what do you think about this news that the Miami Herald put out about the Trump campaign deterring Black voters using big data and technology?
So it's unfortunate. Here's the thing. Data is data. So it's in and of itself not a bad thing. It's just how it's used. So again, because I work in mindfulness, I work with energy, it's what's the intention behind it. So you can have the data. If it's one thing if you're looking at it to analyze a situation, to look at who's where, what's happening, get some information on the community, everything. But when you use that to manipulate, when you use that to just try to exploit, then that's where the problem is. So everyone we all use data to make informed decisions, to know what's happening. But again, it's how it's used, and I don't think it's appropriate, obviously, to use data in that way to do harm or to sway opinions in a certain way or the other. It should be neutral. But unfortunately, it was not used in that way, and we see the result of that.
Yeah, I read the story. It was quite lengthy. A combination of writers collaborated on it. So it really was kind of like investigative journalism, which I appreciated. But it was kind of like as if they were announcing shocking news, which did not shock me personally. Yeah. I think as a woman of color, you are conditioned, you live this life of, you're always thinking strategically about what is going to happen today, what's the moves, how do I stay 2 steps ahead. So to that doesn't shock me to think that I'm kind of just like, and so did the Democratic Party like not prepare for that? Where was Hillary campaign's leader? Were they not thinking that was going to happen? Who's running the show over there? Who's reading the strategy, doing the thing? How did you combat that? Were you doing the same thing? Like, you've got to get in there and just start being active. And then the other thing about it was like, it wasn't, I wanted to see some sort of proactive prompt at the end of it. I love when writing, for my generation, it's like, this is what you can do. Otherwise, you just read this piece and you feel very disempowered and angry.
And also, what's, again, the intention behind the piece? This happened in 2016. Are you saying that this is happening again? Or are you just hashing up old news just to kind of stir people up again? Yeah. To kind of, flame the fire kind of thing. Yeah. So what's that about? Like, we know the story. We've heard the story. For those of us who watched the show, I saw the Cambridge Analytica, I think it was on Netflix or something like that. So yeah, we know this is kind of old news, so to speak. We knew that the campaign did it. So again, why? What's going to happen now with this information? Again, to your point, what do you want us to do with this information now?
Exactly. So this is what you can do. I'm just going to take it myself. Nice. I don't work at the Herald or whatever. I'm not a journalist. Go on your phone if you have Facebook. First, start a watch party for this show right now. Please. Okay. Second, anytime you see a political ad, click on the 3 dots in the right corner and say hide. Tell Facebook, this ad is not relevant to me. I don't want to see this content. Force the platform, the technology that you use to work for you and work in the way that you want, and make those ad dollars that these campaigns are spending no longer useful. Take control of the situation. That's something helpful that people can do. What do you think about the Perez Museum opening up this fantastic exhibit that's going to be showing, but then people are upset they hosted Donald Trump last week, I believe it was.
Right. Well, that one's tough.
Yeah.
Because when you're serving the community, you're supposed to serve the entire community, right? So, regardless of the political affiliation, regardless of, your stance on whatever, unless the PAM, which I'm not familiar, do they take a particular stance on issues? Now, if them as an organization take a particular stance, if they lean a certain way, then of course your programming or your guests or whatever you bring in should be in line with wherever you stand as an organization. But if you try to remain agnostic, if you try to remain if you try to toe the middle line, then who's to say, you can't do one thing or the other? Yeah. Again, to me, it comes back to who they are as an organization. Yeah. And does this make sense for them? Based on who they are, who their customers are, their patrons, their donors. Like, what is this going to do for your funding? Like, how does this affect you as an organization? So, in terms of bringing Donald Trump in or not, I mean, listen, I'm not a fan personally, but that's me and my own political leaning. But as an organization, that's up to leadership to make that choice. And I guess they didn't feel like this was something that would affect them, although they are getting some blowback. It really comes down to the decisions that they make for what's best for their organization. Yeah. I personally, again, like I said, I'm not a fan, but what do you do in terms of how it affects the exhibit and the opening? Are people saying that it will have an effect on it? Are people saying that they're not going to go now because they hosted Donald Trump? Like, is that the feedback that they're getting from this?
Well, I'm curious. Like, would you go to the PAM? I will still go to the PAM.
I'm still going to go.
I still like the PAM. I think it's a great place. You get great selfies there.
Yeah.
Super cute.
I
just think it's a little like maybe they should have maybe rethought the name of the exhibition when you're saying, you know, allied with power. That's literally the title of the exhibition, allied with power, and then all of a sudden all of this news is flourishing around of you hosted Donald Trump.
Well, allied with power, is someone putting on the exhibit? Like, is there an artist that's behind that, and that's the name of the exhibit that the artist chose?
I believe it is pieces from Jorge's collection that fit in with the African diaspora.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, again, the name, like, who chose the name? Where did the name come from?
I don't know.
So, it's one of those things. It's hard because you're going to have a response.
Yeah.
You're going to have an emotional response to these things either way, one or the other.
Yeah.
We also have to recognize we're in Miami. The reality of living in Miami is there are a lot of Trump supporters down here.
It's true.
It's just what it is. So, who's to say? And again, allegedly, we live in America where there is free speech. So, giving all those conditions, you can't really... You don't have to support. This is where, again, your intention and your mindfulness come in. Mm-hmm. You can choose to support or not. Mm-hmm. And then they, as an organization, will decide whether or not the level of support has fallen to a point where they need to shift their programming or need to shift who comes in. Mm-hmm. These are all business decisions. Although it's an arts organization, again, we have an emotional connection to art. It's a business, and they have to decide what works for them. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I'm still going to go to the PAM. I want to see the exhibit.
Yeah.
To me, it doesn't have an influence one way or the other, but some people may. Some people may feel some sort of way now about it. I don't, but that's just me.
Mm-hmm. Oscar's something. Stay on. Okay. Yes. Story the black. Okay. I mean, I don't know what this means, Oscar. You're gonna have to clarify more for me. Yes, it was about 20. That was an old election story. Yeah, but we're kind of maybe they published it. I didn't read. I just read it today. But anyways,
do you remember the date that it was published?
It just came out, right?
But it was talking about what happened in 2016.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, it was kind of an old story that they bubbled up again. But okay, so Shante, I'm sure the people at the PAM right now, some of the people that work there, some of them are young and. It sucks when your organization's in a bad light and there's all of these things. You focus a lot going into organizations, professional companies, doing this diversity inclusion work, mindfulness. How did you get into this type of work?
It's been a beautiful kind of transition. So in my professional life, I've been like all over the place. I have an engineering degree. Should not have had an engineering degree. It's just a degree only. I've always been more of an artist kind of type of person. Music was my focus, and so I started with that degree because I had a lot of math and science classes, needed to get the degree just to get out because college is expensive. Did that. Then once I graduated, had the aha moment that, okay, you did this thing, but all of your loves, all of your passions are in the arts, dance, music, all those things. So switched and got into music, worked in the music business for years. Decided that music business is toxic and my spirit just couldn't take it. Like just working in a major record label really was an affront on my spirit. And it was just, I mean, there was a lot of consumption of substances that should not have been consumed, a lot of drinking, just to get through, just self-medicating just to cope. And I would do yoga to try to balance that out, starting in like 2004. Because you have one side, it's like very like heavy energy, and then the other side, I needed something to balance that out. So yoga's always been that thing for me. And then I just realized working in music was not good for me. It was very toxic, like I said, just being bombarded with a lot of the racism and the sexism and all the things. And the music itself, I wasn't inspired by the music. After a while, I was just like, this is trash. So why am I here? And so I got out. I spent like 10 years, doing independent and major label stuff. Moved back to Florida, and I've always wanted to. The seed was always planted to get into yoga, to teach, and eventually I moved forward with that. Like just last year, I finally got my my teacher training, got my certificate. But I've always been that kind of person. I've always been very mindful. I've always been a deep thinker. I've always been intuitive. I've always been empathic, and so I feel like it was just a natural progression for me to get into the space. So just working with more spirituality, more energy. I've always, although we grew up Christian, I always liked more Eastern philosophy. Like that's just always been who I am. And I finally accepted my weird and said, this is what I'm going to do, and just dive deep and just went into it. And I like being in the space because I like working with people and getting them to be their best selves, but giving them the space to do the deep introspection to help them get there. So I do that for individuals. I do that for organizations. And it's just a way of allowing people to show up as their whole selves at work. So really taking a look at the leadership that's in place in organizations, looking at the culture that's in place, looking at operating principles, looking at core values, and saying, what does all this mean for your staff, for your employees, how they walk in, how can they be here, can they be themselves? So all of it is just energy work. It's just what is the form, what is the application, but it's really just allowing people to be whole, be complete, because we're all just trying to get back to our center.
Right.
Everybody, in whatever environment that you're in. So I just help people do that.
Yeah, I think it's such important work because especially given we finally are seeing brands create spaces for people of color to be angry and kind of being like, before it was like, oh, they're so angry, they're so pissed. It's like, oh yeah, well, I mean, hello. Right. And so there is a question that has come in. So you can definitely either answer this question here about Trump claiming he was the least racist person in the room with an African-American moderator in Kristen Welker. But I also want to have you talk a little bit about your wellness checks that you've been doing, which I've been participating in on a monthly basis.
Yes.
And so, we've got a couple of different things.
Which one do you want me to start with?
Well, we've got only a few more minutes.
Okay.
So, I want to hear about the wellness. I think people need to talk about these wellness checks. It's called Black Professionals Wellness Check.
Yeah. So it's a monthly Black Professionals Wellness Check. And what that came from was when the height of the George Floyd murder, I saw posts online and just talking to friends and just relating to a lot of professional friends that I have. It's hard. It was really hard for them. It took a toll on them emotionally to have to see this happen.
Yeah.
And then have to kind of put it to the side and show up and still have to perform at a certain level where literally you're breaking inside, like you're crumbling.
Yeah.
How do you cope? How do you deal? How do you resource yourself in order to still function when you're not given the space? And then when you show up in these places, people either don't acknowledge what happened, or they're insensitive in some way, shape, or form, or it's like business as usual, and you're like, wait a minute, am I living in a different reality? Like, what is happening? So it was just a response to that. Being a professional myself, like working in those spaces, knowing how challenging it is just to be able to show up as a Black person, having to code switch, having to maybe tame your hair down. I mean, some of these places I couldn't walk in with my hair looking like this. I do it now because I'm a lot freer. But I've worked in environments where this would not be acceptable, especially if I stayed with engineering. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
That's where I got out. But so it's how do you allow people to be and acknowledge where they are and accept them and allow them to show up as they are, give them the space to process and to work through what they need to work through so that they can still do their job. Everyone wants to be able to perform at a certain level, but there are certain things that happen that are a little bit more real for others just because of their lived experiences that need to be acknowledged, and it wasn't being acknowledged. So people were feeling that they didn't have that opportunity to process and to get back to center again. So that's all that space is. It's an open forum, as you know. You come in, whatever's going on, we may have a theme, we may not, and you share and you get the support. You may get some feedback, you may get some tips and tricks on how to navigate your workspaces. But it's really just a space to be seen and heard by other Black professionals because it's lacking. A lot of times we're the only ones or maybe one of a few. And so it's just because we just need the space to support one another.
Well, thank you so much for doing them.
Course.
It really has been wonderful for me as a person of color professional, and it's been healing, and I love them every single month. It brings me a space. I pretty much cry every single one of them. I'm like, why is my life? And then I'm like, okay, pick yourself up.
Yep, take a breath, pick yourself up, and keep it moving.
Care to comment on this
Let's see.
Trump claiming he's the least racist person? I mean, he just says stuff.
He doesn't live in the same reality that we live in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know there's a dissonance. There's some sort of disconnect somewhere from the world that he lives in, the rest of the world that everybody else is in. I don't think he sees himself. So sure, he can say that. He can make that claim because in his mind,
right.
he isn't. He's the least racist person in his mind.
Right.
Because I'm sure there are more racist people. Sure.
Valid.
Sure. Absolutely. And that's the game that he plays.
Yeah.
So if you pay attention, I mean, he's very, like, he might be, you have your opinions of him, but he's good at manipulation. So he always has, he works, there's like a little hole in whatever argument he makes that you could say, I mean, technically, yes, he's right. Technically. But again, come on, man.
Yeah.
Stop.
Right.
You know what it is, and you're just playing the game.
Yeah. And what I would say is just don't let these types of things that he says get you angry, because that's what he wants.
That's what he wants.
When you're angry, you are effing up. You're going to make mistakes. You are acting out of passion and fury. You're not being smart, strategic. So kind of just keep your calm, breathe a little bit, think strategically about how you can, make a move. You got to stay 2 steps ahead of the game.
And if I can add in, he also is an entertainer.
True.
He knows how this game is played. He knows what he needs to say. Exactly. He's been doing this for forever, so he's very good at this.
We
so
are
stop falling for it.
Attention. What is it? Attention currency.
Yeah.
Attention market.
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
A whole thing.
It's the shiny coin.
Yeah.
And he knows how to play that game. So like, don't fall for it. It's on you if you want to engage or not, because he's gonna do him every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming and chatting today. How can people get in touch with you and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram. So if everyone wants to just follow me on Insta, it's at _Shante, SHANTE. And so they can just follow me there. That's pretty much my only channel except for LinkedIn, and that's just Shantae.Gordon. That's the best place to find my schedule and where I'm going to be and what I'm doing. And I hope everyone can connect, maybe come to a Black Professionals Wellness Check, or check out one of my yoga classes. Yeah, or get some coaching if you want some mindfulness coaching.
Thank you, Shante.
Thank you, my dear. This was wonderful. I really appreciate you having me. It's fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talk
Have
to
a
you
great
soon.
one.
All right, we're coming up next with another amazing, fantastic woman, smart and beautiful and present in all ways. I'm going to welcome her, Miss TamiT, and I'm going to remind you, Tami, she's looking at me like, what do I do now? Just come on down to the show. I want to remind you, literally this contest is open to anyone. It's anyone's game right now. If you're in Miami, you can just tell Love It what you want. Comment in. They have tons of restaurants out here. This app also has a really great mission. What they're doing is they're working with restaurants to reduce food waste. So this is a Planet Initiative type of app, and they are going to give someone, any lucky person that comments in will get chosen. Just go download the app and scroll through the restaurants, pick out one that's close to your house or whatnot, and say, I want to win pizza from this one. I want to win something from this. And then you can potentially win that. They're going to give a credit. So welcome, everybody. TamiT to the show.
Hi, how are you?
Your full name is Thamar Theodore, but everybody just calls you Tami.
Yes, Thamar Theodore. Story of my life. That's honestly story of my life. Thamar, Thamara. I'm in Miami. They mix it up, so Tami is nice and simple. It's easily said, so that's what we're sticking to, Tami.
I'm so glad that you have the same name issues as I do. I'm like, people are like, are you Mary or Mary? I'm like, I am everything.
I am everything, right, and that's okay.
I am me. We are going, what does it say? Commentary. You got to hold it up longer. Thank Community News. Yes, of course. I'm very thankful for Miami's Community News. Don't forget to pick up one of their papers, and there are 11 different papers all across the county. Also streaming Monday through Saturday live on Facebook and YouTube. Content, political, food, sports, really cool stuff. Tune in Monday through Saturday, Miami Community News. You're watching Race to the Top with TamiT.
Hey.
TamiT, hostess, producer, on-air talent, in person, background in communications and broadcast journalism. You're like the real deal.
Wow, you have my whole bio. I didn't even send that to you. I'm impressed you found it.
Yes, you've hosted hundreds of events on air, on camera hosting. You've conducted interviews with people, voiceovers, producing various content. You're a social media expert, a creative guru. You've contributed your gifts here in Miami locally, just at Ivy, HGAB, and most recently you're at the Lab Miami.
Yes, I am.
And you're also the founder of TamiT Entertainment and Plug Station, a curated sustainable shopping brand. You know I'm your biggest fan, girl.
Thank you. I came real cute for you,
Thanks
for the
for
fans, for the
coming.
family.
So, Lisa, do you have any tips for me? I've got this little show. They're giving me a chance, a little pilot situation. We're testing it out. Any tips on how I can make this thing a hit?
I mean, well, the beautiful thing is that there's video casting and there's also podcasting, and podcasting is more or less audio blogging. So you can really repurpose this and just do an audio version, put it on YouTube if you want. People actually love listening to podcasts on YouTube. It's a very specific request that I've learned about. So there's so many different ways you can repurpose this video content and turn it into a podcast. So you can feel free to do that. And then on top of that, start to share with people what you're doing behind the scenes. People like to see you growing. They like to see tidbits. They also like to see parts of your expertise. So what are you good at? What you are a Jill of all trades. I think that's something that we both connect with on. And I'm very grateful to be in your space. And thank you so much for having me. That's something that you can really start to show people. People like to understand, why should I invest in you and how do you relate to my lifestyle? And so if you show them tidbits of like, oh, I'm good at this and this is what I enjoy and you're passionate about it, you talk about it, you don't have to force anything, that's going to help you naturally build an audience. They'll just start to gravitate towards you and they'll bring their friends and they'll be like, oh, do you know about so-and-so? She does this. And she has a podcast, or she also does a video cast. And I feel like you should definitely tune in. And those are ways to start drawing traffic to the content that you create in a very organic way.
Okay, great. So what is that actually tangible? Should I be posting pictures of like my hair before it gets done?
Well, what's related to you and your brand? Like, what do you care about?
Art,
what do you, there you go.
Community.
Yes, there you go.
Technology.
There you go.
Sustainability. Woo!
All the above. And
all
to be
hyped up.
honest, we follow each other, and I do pay attention to things you share, and you already are doing that. I think what can happen too is the doing more on camera video clips where you're sharing like, you know what, this is something I'm doing right now with a client. This is something I'm doing right now to help so-and-so excel or to scale in their art. And just showing the tidbits of what you're doing behind the scene will give people a little bit more leverage as to why they should care.
Okay, cool. I'm going to make a concentrated effort to do that this week. Watch me on Instagram. I'm Dorsett now. Also, I'm trying to bump up my Twitter. Let me know what your Twitter handle is, because I go there and I need more stuff in my feed. My Twitter's super dead, dude.
I love Twitter.
Me too. I'm trying to get my Twitter poppin'.
Yeah, it's a fun place. I feel like Twitter, it still lives because you can literally be raw on there and you can say something really quick. I feel like, to me, Twitter was like my diary for a long time. Like my public diary is how I treated it. So it's kind of like no filter vibe.
Right.
And I think that's a great way for you to like just engage with people. It's a great space to engage with people if you don't really care so much about like the filter aspect and like being yourself.
No one likes my tweets right now.
Well, start going to different accounts and start reaching out to different accounts that you find interesting, that you see people on there that you want to connect with. Start commenting on their things, start talking to them, engage in conversation, and they'll just naturally flow your way.
Okay, perfect. I need people to follow on Twitter. Let me know what your Twitter handle is. Comment in your Twitter. Tami, so let's talk about the digital age that we're in. We're talking a little bit about Twitter. We're talking about podcasting.
Yes.
What is it about this age that we're in where podcasting is so hot?
Yes. So podcasting started technically in the 1980s. And as I said, it is a form of, it's been around for a while. People don't actually know that. And it was slept on until 2004, pardon me. So the thing with that is the power of it is really lies that we can control our narrative. And I think that's where the power really is that we can literally talk about whatever we want. We can broadcast it ourselves, and you can reach whoever you want with the power of the internet. That is phenomenal. Yeah. Okay. So just to give like a little bit more of like data so people can understand how powerful and really useful this tool can be for you. It's not for everyone. I don't think everyone should just go ahead and get a podcast. I think there's a misconception there that, oh, maybe I should start a podcast just to start it. No, not necessarily. Okay. You have to have some substance. You do have to have something that people want to hear about. Are you servicing a need? It's more or less like a business. Are you providing a solution? Are you relating to anyone's lifestyle? Are you providing something that they want to learn more about, that they don't want to necessarily go to mainstream information, or they don't have the time to necessarily look it up, and they just want to hear it? People love to hear real voices, real conversations, people interacting in that way, and they feel like they're part of the room, even if they can't see you. And if you want them to see you, you can amplify that and do video casts. You could do both. It doesn't matter. But really, based off Edison's research, it's I can't remember the exact name of the stat, but according to it in 2019, about 32% of listeners are listening monthly, of Americans listening monthly. And that's a big deal, because that's about, I want to say, about 105 million listeners per month who are Americans that are tuning into podcasts. So that just shows that a lot of people want and are looking for that curated content where they are not relying on like something programmed in a certain way and any biases. And if there is something biased, like it's something that they agree with, and that's okay. There's just so much more options available to you with podcasting. So that's why I feel like people should get interested in it, understand how it could be useful to them, how it can help them expand their brand. It can also help you build a community, build an audience. You can also utilize it as an alternative stream of income, which a lot of people don't know. There are people who full-time podcast right now, and that's all they do. But you have to get to a point where you have the followers, you are getting the plays and the downloads, and there's an organic way to go about that.
Okay, great. So what are some of the favorite podcasts that you have?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because I don't listen to podcasts very much. I mean, I do Along the Line, Innovation City.
Oh, yeah, that's local.
There's this woman, I listen to the Duolingo Spanish podcast because I'm trying to learn Spanish.
Ooh.
And then there's a woman that it's called Astral. She does like moon readings every month. So I listen to that one. It's very good.
Honestly, at this point, there are millions of podcasts available to you. It's really based off the genre and niche that you're interested in. So there's only like one of those that I actually could pinpoint because it's a local one, Innovation City. Shout out to them.
Yeah.
But right now, the Big Idea Box podcast
Another one of my
is born out of the Lab Miami, which I'm a community manager there and a podcast producer. And that podcast focuses on entrepreneurial lifestyle and business. So honestly, anything under the sun, from holistic living to, learning from a startup business leader here in the community, to the taboo conversations that women tend to have in the restrooms in their workplace because they don't feel like they can necessarily talk to anyone about it, but there are other women that can relate. Even mompreneurs, we've had conversations about that. We talk about a plethora of things. So that's one of my favorites, the Big Idea Box podcast. I'll say that again. If you guys want to tune into it, it's at the Big Idea Box. And you can find that on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and honestly, most of all the other platforms that you would find your favorite podcast.
Yeah, you guys I want to hear the other ones, but you guys get some really good guests on there just because it's through the Lab Miami.
Yes.
One of the first co-working space in Miami.
Yes,
so deep roots, lots of success stories, people that have grown their brands and businesses from, idea to all the way to scaling it there. So they've got roots and they come back, they come on the show and they share that story and the knowledge and the things that they learn.
Yes, definitely.
So it's a good podcast because it has that, and then it has the mix of like the fun lifestyle stuff, and the crew that records it is fun to listen to and talk to.
Yeah, it's our team. It's the four of us. It's Rachel, who's the managing director of the Lab Miami, myself included, Brian, and Sebastian. And we're like the Fab Four. We're the ones that we're the main cast, but we mix it up. We have our programming is honestly like a goulash of a few different types of content.
Okay. And Sebastian's still doing it even though he's just launched Paxis, right?
Yeah, he's with Paxis. That's his new baby, and it focuses on spiritual meditation, and he actually has a podcast for it. So he learned from us, from the experience that we went on together. We launched the podcast in February 2019 of last year, and he learned so much that he was like, oh my God, I feel like this is a great platform for me to share the power of meditation, the power of healing through podcasting.
So we've got about 3 minutes left. do you want to share some of your other podcast favorites?
Yeah, Chats with Kat. It's one of my favorites as well. She focuses on millennial entrepreneurial women, and she's young, doing her thing. She's amazing. She talks to a lot of young ladies that have started their own businesses, that have platforms of their own, and are navigating the waters. I feel like millennials, we have a lot of new things that we are. We're breaking curses. We're doing things that our parents and parents didn't do, and we don't necessarily have a blueprint. So we're really figuring it out as we go. With the power of the internet is like on top of that, like added to the experience. So what our jobs look like and what our everyday looks like is so different. So to explain that to somebody like our grandparents, they're like, "What do? You're a blogger? What's that? You're a podcaster? What's that?" So it's important to cultivate spaces where you can talk to other people who can relate to your experience as you're figuring it out. So that's what Chats with Kat is about. She's Afro-Latina, which I'm all about. She's based from Miami, but she actually moved to New York, and now she started her own platform called Goddess Council, which is a beautiful way for her to cultivate love, wellness, and growth around other millennial women. What other podcast? I feel like that's like one of my top. So I don't want to go too deep. Yeah.
Well, okay, that's good. How can people get in touch with you if they want to work with you? They want to start their own podcast.
Yes.
Maybe they just want to pick your brain, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. So you could go to @CreateSpace with Tami. That is my Instagram handle, and that's like really where I share most of my information and what I do behind the scene information. Everything I share with you is what I'm doing. And I also provide 30-minute free consultations if you have any questions and you want to learn more about, okay, how can I get started and does this make sense for me and why I feel like I should do it, or I'm scared, I feel overwhelmed, or I don't think anyone's going to listen to it, or the market's too saturated and, I don't think anyone's going to even tune in to my show. Like, all those fears, misconceptions, reach out to me and I will, kind of hold your hand. I'm kind of a podcast guide is what I like to call myself.
Yes, I love it. Well, thanks for coming on today,
Thank you.
taking the time. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you so much. And thank you to Community News for having me.
Yes. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in today on Miami Community News. We are still waiting for someone to win. So put in your comment, whatever you want, win what you want, thanks to the Love It app. And like, comment, and share this episode. Thank you to my guests today. Thank you, Tami and Oscar, my fabulous, amazing team. Next week, we're going to be chatting with TC Chambers about finance, and we're going to have Bernard Smalls, the founder of Balt Vodka, in the house, a Miami-based vodka brand that I love. So make sure you tune in for that. Have a great rest of your weekend, guys.